A very good afternoon, students. Today we are going to look into the growth of novel in terms of Indian writing in English. Earlier, we had a session on the history of Indian writing in English, where we had a brief introduction about novel, the form novel. Today, we will specifically go into the growth of novel in terms of English. During the initial years of Indian writing, the premier kind was poetry. It was followed by other kinds, especially drama. So, though its growth in the later years far exceeded than the other forms, fiction was actually the last one to arrive into the scenario, or the last one to arrive into the Indian English literary scene. So, Indian fiction and English, like other branches of Indian English literature, originated and grew up under the tutelage of the British. So, the earliest fictional efforts, which were tales rather than novels, proper appeared in journals. So it's not there in the PowerPoint. So the first work is Kailash Chandra Dutch, a journal of 48 hours of year 1945, was published in the Calcutta Literary Gazette in 1835. In similar, another work that is Shashi Chundar Dutt's Republic of Orissa Annals from the pages of the 20th century appeared in the Saturday Evening Prakaro in 1845. The first novel to appear in Indian writing in English was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's Raj Mohan's Wife. It was serialized in the Calcutta Weekly, that is the Indian Field in 1864, and it appeared in the book form only in the year 1935. So novels in the initial years were brought out to the forefront by writers from Bengal, and eventually they were followed by Madras contemporaries like A. Madhavaya and A. Ramakrishna Pillai. From the 60s up to the end of 19th century, novels by writers from Madras presidencies began to appear. So majority of these novels were social and few historical, and their models were obviously the 18th century and 19th century British fiction, particularly the impact of Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding, and Scott. Interestingly, there were also women novelists. For example, Raj Lakshmi Devi's The Hindu Wife or The Enchanted Fruit, Torudat's unfinished work, that is Bianca, uh, Kirubai Satyanathan's Kabbalah, a story of Hindu life, and Saguna, a story of native Christian life, and Shivanti Bai and Nikampe's Ratan Bai, a sketch of a Bombay high caste Hindu young wife. So these are the important writers who were there in the beginning of Indian fictional writing. So one of the major themes that they express is the urge for social reform. So apart from that, the topics like the position of women, the plight of peasants, and the decay of old aristocracy were dealt with in many works. However, the political theme were not in the forefront. Another type of fiction that made an early appearance was historical romance. And Indian English novel was deeply influenced by the political, social, and ideological ferment caused by the Gandhian movement. The novelists of the Gandhian age were so preoccupied with the politics of the day. It was during this period Indian English fiction discovered some of its most significant themes, such as the ordeal of freedom struggle, the East West relationship, communal problems, and the plight of the untouchables, the landless poor, the economic exploited extra. For instance, K.S. Venkatraman's novel Murugan the Tiller was the first to come up under this influence. There were several others written under the same genre. So when we talk about novel in particular, the beginnings of the 20th century witnessed the gradual growth of its form. And the most important or significant event in the history of Indian English fiction was the appearance of three important writers. Three important writers were called as the Trinity of Indian writing in English. Okay, so William Wallace, the critic, was the one who calls them the Trinity of Indian writing in English. Why? Because these writers were representatives of Indian experience. They were the representatives of Indian life in English, and they were also the representatives of the omitted part of history in an alien language. So the three trinity of Indian writing in English are Milkrajanand, R.K. Narayan, and Raja Rao. Whose all the three writers' first novel was published in 1935. For instance, Mulk Raj Anand and R.K. Narayan's first work was published in 1935, and Raja Rao's first work was published in 1938. To start with Mulk Raj Anand, Mulk Raj Anand was one of the prominent members of the Bloomsbury group that was initiated by James Joyce, and he had a strong Western influence. The work that is untouchable involves a stream of consciousness technique, and also it expresses humanitarian compassion for the downtrodden as its persistent theme. So it deals through a life of an untouchable by the name Bhakta, uh, who endures a caste struggle in this foreign land. So it also expresses Gandhi's idea of dignity. So apart from this work, some of his other works includes the Chronicles of Coolie, that is Coolie and Two Leaves and a Bud, wherein he again exposes the another class of underprivileged in this work. So the Big Heart that was brought out in the year 1945 was Anand's last novel before independence, and his first novel after independence was Seven Summers. It was published by another work that is a private life of an Indian prince. Apart from that, there are also works like The Village, Across the Black Waters, The Sword and the Sickle that was published by Milkraj Anand. The second in the list is R.K. Narayan, who is very important in terms of Indian writing in English, who is very important for bringing out an imaginary town of Malgudi. So Narayan's important works include Swami and Friends, The Bachelor of Arts, Waiting for Mahatma that was published in 1942, which brings about the Quit India movement. So apart from this work, R.K. Narayan was not at all political. Apart from this work, there is also important. Some of his other important works include The Dark Room, The Gate, etc. And the third of the trio is Raja Rao, who was a strong favorite when it comes to the civil disobedience movement. And some of his important works include Kantapura, The Serpent and the Rose, The Cat and Shakespeare, Comrade Kilirao, The Cat, Cow of the Barricades, and other short stories. For instance, Raja Rao's Kantapura, marked the beginning of solid Indian fiction. And Kantapura was the only novel of Raja Rao that was written before independence. So all the other works came after independence. For instance, the work that is The Serpent and the Rope. It's also won him the Shakti Academy Award in the year 1963. So Raja Rao, fictional works obviously lack social dimension that was seen in the other writers. And this period also witnessed the beginnings of ethnic novel. So with the years rolled by, so these are the things that we predominantly deal about when we talk about Indian fiction, in particular with Indian fiction before pre-independence. So Indian novel is growing and it will ever grow, right? With the ages go by, we are thing is there have been variety of genres that have been developed in Indian writing, and as we say, literature is always multidimensional, and uh, with the growth of genres, with the growth of issues, some other thing pops up in literature. And with that note, thank you for listening to me. Have a great day.